Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. In today's video, we are going to be talking about a palette that has let me down. Personally, this is something that breaks my heart to share with you my thoughts on this palette and whether I think this is worth it. You guys can probably already tell that this isn't something that I would recommend to you guys, but we have a lot to talk about regarding this palette. This is the new Natasha Denona Love Palette. Now, you guys tagged me in tons of posts about this promo picture and this collection. In particular, this palette was the item that you guys really wanted me to review. And this, to me, so far, this is a first impression. I have not applied every single shade to my eye, but I have already a very strong first impression based on the info that I have for you guys, and it's not pretty. So this palette is her new Valentine's Day palette. It does retail at Sephora right now for 65 American dollars. It is also 87 Canadian dollars for my Canadian viewers. And this, you guys, is also available at Beautylish right now, as well as Natasha's website. Now, a couple things to note about this palette. This is the exact same size as the Sunrise palette that was released last year. I actually ordered from Sephora this time. They packaged this one super well. I've had issues in the past with Sephora where they just throw her palettes into a box and then it doesn't actually come in one piece. It ends up crushing tons of shadows because she often has a ton of softer formulas. And this one luckily was in a piece of like a cardboard tissue paper inside an additional box inside the Sephora box. So it was very well protected, and I'm glad that they have learned to pack them better. There is also a Chic palette and some lip products in this collection, but like I said, this was basically the highlight that you wanted me to talk about today. Now, I'm going to show you the swatches later, but the swatches, you guys, were very unimpressive. Now, this is not necessarily something that you should test a palette on. You should really be testing it based on how it applies to the lid. I've had this for a couple of days. I did do 2 looks with this. This is my second look with this. So I've used almost every shade now. I'm really sick of Natasha changing the formulas up all the time. This is something that we've kind of come to know about her. She's pretty inconsistent with formulas at times. She likes to try stuff new all the time. A lot of you guys think that's a pro. A lot of you think it's a con. I think personally it's not the best thing, because when you're a consumer and you have a formula that you love, you should hopefully come to expect it, but she decided to switch stuff up again. So looking at this palette here, this is the Color Story. Incredibly beautiful, you guys. I do think the promos make this look more of a red versus a peachy pink. It's definitely more pink in person. And the shades that I have on my eyes today, I'm just gonna kind of show you step by step. So today I went all over the lid with Soul, and you guys, I do have a little bit of some texture to my eyelids, and I did find that Soul was actually kind of accentuating it a little bit, which I didn't appreciate. It's not the eyeshadow's fault, but if you have any kind of texture on your lids, just be careful that it will kind of make it look a little worse, unfortunately. The next step I went into was Pure Love. This is a duochrome right here. This is something that we've seen before, though. This isn't a super astronomically unique shade. The purple kind of pink duochrome shift has been done multiple times before. This is one that I thought was really good. It applied really beautifully with a very dense brush. I did find that I had very little fallout, and this one just glided over the lid beautifully. It is a little bit more of like a topper. It's still fairly pigmented, but it has more of a topper quality. Then I went in with Lifetime, which is a gorgeous gold shade. This also swatches beautifully. It's incredibly richly pigmented. It has that gold, champagne-y kind of aspect to it. Very, very beautiful. And I finished off with Heartbeat. Now, Heartbeat is one that swatched incredibly poor, so I wanted to see how bad it would apply to the eye if it would change that or anything. And sure enough, it's a little bit patchy when applied. I did use a precise brush from Refer Brushes for this, and this gave me the control I wanted. The fallout was 0, which I really liked. This one was a touch patchy to apply, but definitely buildable and something that you can work with, but I do think that it requires a little bit of effort to really work with it well, essentially. So those are the shades I used today. Now, I did try a couple of her cream to powder formula shades. She does have a couple in here. There's one that's called Dream right below, and there's one that's called Commitment. Now, I personally don't like that Commitment is such a deep shade. It's meant, obviously, to have more of a smoky effect for smokier looks, but this one is harder to blend because of the cream to matte formula. I do find that I don't know for sure. If I'm not positive on this, I don't want to state it, but I feel like she reformulated this again in some way, because this one was definitely difficult to blend out because it's so creamy. I felt like I had more control with the finger application, but because this one is so dark, you almost have to go for like an overall dark smoky look or like pat it somehow. And for me, I don't really wear looks like that. I would probably use a shade like that kind of in the inner corner, and that's where I would need some pretty decent blendability to it. So that's unfortunate for that shade. This one is lighter and a little bit more easy to work with. It does blend out a little bit more. When I did my purple look the other day, which I'm kicking myself, I did not film the look, but this is another cream to powder formula, and you can tell when you swatch it, it has that consistency of almost like a cream versus the powder effect. Now, when it comes to like absolutely outstanding shades in here, the first one that comes to mind is Blind. Blind is a beautiful silver. Not only does this swatch beautifully, but it applies beautifully. It builds up really well. It's one that is like a truly unique shade, I would say, and the Natasha Denona quality that you pay for. The other shades in here, you guys, I feel are very underwhelming. I haven't tried Intense or Valentine yet, but these also have swatched fairly poorly and on the dry side. So I'm going to assume that I'm going to have to build it up quite a bit when I do use it, and that's really too bad because you're looking at a fairly expensive palette here. I also think as a whole that there's quite a few shades in here that I don't really like, that haven't performed right away really well. And for this price tag, you guys, I feel like there has to be way more shades to be more consistent versus just a few of them. First was okay, it wasn't great. Lifetime was good. Transparent is nice, and then Giving is nice. Pure Love is more of like a sheer top coat, like I said, but still beautiful. I would say Blind is good, so that's 3 there. Heart is actually a little bit more sheer than I would like, so when you look at the actual pigmentation of this, you think that this would be like more of like a reddy pink and really, really bright, but it's actually fairly sheer. So this is another one that you have to build up on the lid. And then the bottom row here was one of the most disappointing rows, I would say. Passion is still good, but this is a shade I feel like a lot of us have. So when you're looking at this palette, I'm literally pulling up that maybe half of these shades are my favorites and the other ones I really don't want to use again, nor do I think they measure up to Natasha Denona's quality. Now for my vegan viewers, there is carmine in, I believe, every single shade in here minus 3 of them. So do know that there's a ton of carmine in it, especially if it's an irritant to you. Do keep in mind that there is carmine in these shadows. But overall, when I look at the other palettes that I have versus this one, I don't see any like distinct shades that might look, you know, anywhere near some of these. This is Sunrise next to Love, and I'm looking at them right now, and the only ones I can see are Clove, which is the bottom left of Sunrise here on my left side, or right to you. And then Heartbeat looks pretty close. So I swatched both of those side by side, and as you can see, that's probably the closest shadow between them, but certainly not enough of like an overlap to be concerned that there's a ton of repeat shades or anything. Okay, so here is Love palette next to Lila. And as you can see, that Lila is a little bit more cooler than Love, and Lila also has more of like, what's the word? It's kind of like gray, brown, taupier, a little bit more of like a purple versus a pink dominance to it. So I still think that out of these two, there isn't anything that is similar either. So those are really good things to note if you're looking for something like this and you don't mind working a little bit on the formula, or if you are a Natasha fan. It could very well be that I have a dud palette, but a lot of these shades, you guys, consistently didn't seem to work up to the expectation I'm used to. When I think about a matte, this is like, I'm gonna swatch a matte from Lila. So I just swatched this one at the top here, and I'm just gonna show you on my hand. Let's see if we can do this. Like, do you see how strong that is? That's amazing. Let's go like that. Yeah, this is so awkward. Okay, can you see that? I probably should have done it like more in the center, but do you see how strong that is? Now let's go to a matte in Love. I'm gonna do Heartbeat, and I'm gonna give it a good chance. Like, I'm really rubbing it in. So do you see the difference there? Like, it's patchy. I literally rubbed the heck out of my finger into that pan to really pick up as much as I could. Like, I wanted to give it a solid chance. And that's kind of the difference in quality. Let's see about like other formulas. We have Biba here from Natasha Denona as well. Same kind of tin packaging. And I'm going to swatch one of these here. Let's see, which one shall we swatch? We can swatch a matte at the bottom here. Again, beautiful, pigmented, nice. Now from the Love palette, I'm going to do Valentine or Intense. Let's do Intense because that's a little bit brighter, and we will do this one here. Again, I am rubbing it, I want to say at least 4 times. Like again, this is me pushing down really, really hard. It doesn't give the same vibe. Both of them are mattes from the palettes, but like what is going on here? Like I would much rather buy like the Biba palette, the Lila palette, the ones that have more consistent formulas across the board versus this palette, to be honest. So again, there's a lot of choice out there, you guys. I don't think that if just because you're a Natasha Denona's fan that you need to buy everything. Personally, this is something that I regret buying, honestly, but I'm glad that I was able to give you guys the information about it. This Natasha is a limited edition palette according to her website right now, but to be honest with you, I would much rather prefer a palette like this. This is from Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Pillow Talk palette. As you can see, this isn't the exact same color story by any means, but it gives very similar pinky, peachy kind of vibes. This palette to me is more consistent than the Love palette. So if you want a new palette for Valentine's Day and you're wanting certain types of looks, I personally think that's a better buy, but that's just me. Now here we are with the swatches, you guys. So I did want to show you guys kind of how the swatches looked when I built them up 2 to 3 layers. And as you can see, there's quite a few shadows that need a little bit of help. Based on my first impressions and the shades that I have used, I do feel like I have enough data to tell you whether or not I think it is a good buy at this point, because the majority of the shades didn't really impress me. When I speak the truth, it often comes off negative and maybe not welcoming. So I'm sorry about that. That's not my intention, of course, but I just wanted you guys to know that based on my experience with this isn't the Natasha Denona quality that I would prefer to have for this price point. Maybe I'm getting pickier, maybe I have a bad palette. Do let me know down below your thoughts. Is this going to be a palette you will be purchasing? I am very, very interested to hear everything. And until my next video, guys, take care. Thank you so, so much for watching. Bye, guys.
You and me, everything that we've been through has made us strong. You won't believe we've had our gray, but somewhere there's a light inside of us. It shows the way.